Good morning, students. Today, we are going to discuss another poem from Honeycomb, 7th Standard CBSE Literature Textbook. The poem we are going to discuss today is about someone we see every day. He can be the boy sitting next to you in the class, or perhaps in the last bench gossiping away merrily while the class is going on, or the one whom the teacher always sends outside the class for his mischief. She can be that girl who suddenly shows up with a tattoo on her forearm or an extravagantly dyed hair. They can be the ones who always argue with you or others, never ready to accept what others say. They are the rebels. And today we are going to talk about the poem The Rebel by DJ Enright. But before we begin, let's stop for a moment to briefly cram his literary biography in our mind. DJ Enright was born on 11th March 1920 in England, and in England he died at the ripe old age of 82 on 31st December 2002. His notable works include selected poems, academic year, figures of speech, man is an onion, joke shop, etc. Before we move on to the poem, let us just take a look at the themes of this poem. The themes of this poem acknowledge out of box thinking. They celebrate difference in opinion as not necessarily a bad thing, and finally, they encourage creativity and warn about the difficulties one may face. Before we start reading the poem, let us have a brief look at one of the rebels. Look at the bull. Look at his expression. Rebellion boiling on the tip of the horns. Well, let's move on before he decides to rebel his horns on us. So now the poem. Let us first read the poem. When everyone has short hair, the rebel lets his hair grow long. When everyone has long hair, the rebel cuts his hair short. When everyone talks during the lesson, the rebel doesn't say a word. When nobody talks during the lesson, the rebel creates a disturbance. When everybody wears a uniform, the rebel dresses in fantastic clothes. When everybody wears fantastic clothes, the rebel dresses soberly. In the company of dog lovers, the rebel expresses a preference for cats. In the company of cat lovers, the rebel puts in a good word for dogs. When everybody's praising the sun, the rebel remarks on the need for rain. When everybody's greeting the rain, the rebel regrets the absence of sun. When everybody goes to the meeting, the rebel stays at home and reads a book. When everybody stays at home and reads a book, the rebel goes to the meeting. When everybody says, yes, please, the rebel says, no, thank you. When everybody says, no, thank you, the rebel says, yes, please. It is very good that we have rebels. You may not find it very good to be one. Before we move on to the remaining parts of this poem, say summary and in-depth analysis, let us first think why should we read this poem? Why this poem is included in this syllabus? See, living in a good, sheltered, perfect life with everything chalked out for the foreseeable future, why should we rebel? What can be achieved by giving it all up? The truth is, actually, rebelling is fun. Remember those buddies in school who were constantly rebelling against the big bad system? Spending periods after periods in the washroom or that senior section stairwell? Or how the discipline charge's face turned purple when they came up with spiked hair and piercings or even tattoos despite several warnings? Yeah, those were fun times with lots of entertainment. to make school life interesting. But didn't Steve Jobs rebel against the system too? Even death, and came back to impress us with his magic? Well, I mean, before he left for good, that is. Stephen Hawking, for example, he too rebelled. And thank God for that. History is shaped by rebels. Science and technology is shaped by rebels. Even God had to create an entire realm for the star rebel in his company. Lucifer, he goes by the name of Satan these days. So, what goes on in a rebel's mind? Should we all start rebelling ourselves? Is it good to rebel? Is there any benefit? The poem tries to give some idea to these questions. So, now moving on, let us go through the summary of this poem. The poem lists several behaviors where the rebel differs from the usual rest. The rebel always does the opposite than the rest, whether be it the haircut, classroom behavior, fashion sense, pet love, weather, and so on and so forth. Having a rebel in our midst is good, but being a rebel may seem equally difficult. Let us now get to the tone and the setting of this poem. See, DJ Enright assumes a non-sentimental tone in this poem as he sets out to delineate rebel behavior. He has no malice in his humor. It is light-hearted and gentle and written in a free style without any rhyme in his couplets. In a way, the style reflects the nature of the rebel he sets out to depict in the poem. Just like his style, a rebel is free to do whatever he or she decides to do. Further, he infuses just a little amount of satire at the end of the poem and brings a tone of caution in his voice. We like rebels around us, but we don't want ourselves to become a rebel. He gently satirizes this sentiment of society at large. The poem shows us a rebel both in and out of his room. Enright dons the role of an instructor in a biolab, for example, as he shows around a new specimen, quote unquote rebel, and describes its nature. Now let us look at the elements here at play. Obviously, there is the rebel, and then there is everyone else. Now let us analyze the poem line by line, para by para. So, first part. When everybody has short hair, the rebel lets his hair grow long. When everyone has long hair, the rebel cuts his hair short. When everyone talks during the lesson, the rebel doesn't say a word. When nobody talks during the lesson, the rebel creates a disturbance. To rebel, one doesn't need some lofty ideals. One can rebel about the length of one's hair. One may even rebel in class by acting different from the rest. Creating a disturbance is as rebellious as remaining silent, depending on the situation. The student who stays silent in a commotion and starts a disturbance when everything is quiet is a rebel himself, right? Now, moving on to the theory dilemma. Shahid Kapoor, Kabir Singh, rebel with a cause. Look at the rebel with his short hair and look at him when he let his hair grow long. His rebellion knew no bound. Now, moving on to the next part of this analysis. When everybody wears a uniform, the rebel dresses in fantastic clothes. When everybody wears fantastic clothes, the rebel dresses soberly. In the company of dog lovers, the rebel expresses a preference for cats. In the company of cat lovers, the rebel puts in a good word for dogs. Fantastic seems to suggest clothes marked by extravagant fantasy or extreme individuality. For the rebel, I think it's the latter. Soberly here means subdued in tone or color, not showy. The poet continues to list rebellious behavior. He is a rebel who doesn't agree to dress as the rest. Even when having a normal gathering, a rebel has to say the opposite. A rebel will love cats where everyone prefers dogs, and dogs where everyone prefers cats. A rebel thus may end up leading a cat and dog life with his neighbors. By the way, cat and dog life means living in constant fight, argument, and the likes. Let us see the dressing dilemma. See, here is a rebel in fantastic clothes, and the same rebel Joker, if you remember Dark Knight, in a uniform. Whether he is in a fantastic clothes or in a uniform doesn't change the fact that he is basically a rebel. Let's stop for a moment here and think what is happening right now. See, the poem is divided into couplets, that is, two lines, and subsequent, that is, back to back couplets, together represent opposite sides of the same issue. The one thing that we must note that the rebel has no definitive behavior pattern. For example, not everyone who keeps long hair or disturbs in the class is a rebel. However, a rebel shows a tendency to oppose the common social customs. He may contradict even simple norms like the dress code for different events or even a simple discussion among friends about their pet choices. Thus, we can see a general pattern is evolving in the poem that shows contradiction as the keystone for becoming a rebel. Moving on to the third part of the analysis. When everybody is praising the sun, the rebel remarks on the need for rain. When everybody is greeting the rain, the rebel regrets the absence of sun. When everybody goes to the meeting, the rebel stays at home and reads a book. When everybody stays at home and reads a book, the rebel goes to the meeting. The rebel actually sticks out like a sore thumb. When everybody is basking in the sun, playing, hanging out with buddies, it's the rebel who cannot help but think of rain. On the other hand, when people finally welcomes the monsoon, the rebel mourns for good old sunny days. A rebel finds every excuse to escape a meeting where everyone is coming. But just as everyone sits back home, he alone attends the meeting. Remember those friends who especially go to school whenever there is a heavy rain and everyone is back home? Yes, they are the rebels. They always rebelled. Finally, the last part of the poem. When everybody says yes, please, the rebel says no, thank you. When everybody says no, thank you, the rebel says yes, please. It is very good that we have rebels. You may not find it very good to be one. Very important lines, this final closing section. So let's see. A rebel will always stand out from the mass. If everyone jumps at something, readily accepts any offer, the rebel will politely but firmly turn it down. And he will accept that which all others are refusing. He cannot help it basically. It's his nature. Such rebels are not our imagination. We have them in our society around us. They are the one who brings variety in the otherwise monotonous life. However, the poet warns us that becoming a rebel oneself is not that easy nor fun. Let's just see what Albert Camus has to say about a rebel, how he defines a rebel. According to Albert Camus, a man who says no but whose refusal does not imply a renunciation He is also a man who says yes from the moment he makes his first gesture of rebellion. So, a rebel basically is one who dares to take a stand, no matter what others say or do. Let's now just think about the ending. The detached and perhaps certainly humorous observations of the poet firmly establishes the fact that a rebel will never fit in with the crowd. He will always question and perhaps never conform to the established rules. However, such people are important for our society. You see, unless we question, we will never learn anything new. Had Einstein accepted Newton's theory of gravity without question, general theory of relativity would have never seen the light of the day. If Raja Ram Mohan Roy never questioned the custom, we would still be burning women on the pyre. And finally, if Prometheus hadn't rebelled against God, we would still be living in the darkness. Now, just think about the final section, the closing lines. See, by now it is clear that it's indeed good that we have rebels in our society. Their out of box thinking, their urge to not accept anything on face value has indeed helped our society to move forward. But if that is really so, then why the caution? Also, it's not a figment of imagination. If you remember, Galileo was jailed for his rebellion. Ram Mohan Roy had to fight his own people. Kabir Singh almost died. The question that begs to be asked is why? It can be said that society fears those who don't conform. They pose the biggest threat to the integrity of society and hence they try at any rate to bring them under. Just see. Next time when you're in class, just see how a teacher comes down with his titanic wrath on a student who keeps disturbing or arguing in the class. Jokes apart, the poet doesn't say that one shouldn't be a rebel. He only warns that the path is difficult and there will be obstacles at every turn, but only those who take the road less traveled by makes all the difference. Now, let us focus on the forms and figures of this poem. The poem is written in a freestyle. The length of the lines vary and there is even a 12 syllable line that sticks out like a rebel. What line? When everybody stays at home and reads a book. Just count the syllables. You will find that there are 12 of them. A line of 12 syllables is called alexandrine. There is also alliteration, that is, repetition of similar consonant sounds in close succession, and can be found in his hair, company of cat, rebel remarks, etc. There is also epistrophe or epiphora. I hope you remember anaphora, the repetition of same words or phrases at the beginning of each and every sentence. Epistrophe or epiphora is basically the opposite. It is the return of the same word or phrase at the end of each sentence, as in fantastic clothes, stays at home and reads a book, no, thank you, etc. These expressions are repeated back to back. Finally, let's spare few thoughts on the title. So, who is a rebel? Webster defines a rebel as someone who opposes or disobeys someone in authority or control. The characteristic nature of a rebel thus would be to contradict whatever is laid down upon him. He is one who is not happy with whatever he has got and is always stepping out of the crowd to think or do things in a different manner. Rebels are important to broaden the horizon. Rebels celebrate creativity. Adolescent period, that is, the teens of the world, are by nature rebellious. They rebel against the authority and question everything. The characteristics that the poet observes in his rebel can be observed in many teenagers, and perhaps the poem is written with them in mind. Since the rebel is the central character in this poem, the title is succinct. Thank you.